Hi everybody, good morning. Before we start, I suppose I would like to maybe just get a sense from you if you have already worked from home before this, if it's completely new to you, or if there are any particular problems that you have with it that are areas that you might be struggling with. So thanks for those, because I think some of those we've covered, but it's just good to know, get a sense of what you're all doing and what you kind of want to know about. So I'll work through it and we'll try and go through it fast enough what I have prepared for slides, and then we'll have maybe hopefully a little bit of time at the end. I have a watch beside me today because I didn't get through half my slides the last one we did, so I'll try and be a bit quicker today and give you a bit of time at the end to kind of discuss stuff if we need to. So I'm going to just make sure I have my slides open and share them with you now. So what I'd recommend for you to do, if my slides are coming up, if you look up at the top of your screen, there should be a thing where you can control the kind of view you have. And I was on a webinar yesterday and I went into it and I put it onto side-by-side view, and then I pulled the side of the box with the speaker out from the side, so to make it a bit bigger. So I had the slides and I had the speaker video visible kind of side by side, which was quite good to just kind of get a, more engagement with them as they're speaking, and then you're looking at the slide as well beside it. So if anyone's not used to Zoom and doesn't know how to do that, it's a good little trick to just kind of the best, I think for me, I found it the best way to watch a webinar anyway. So if anyone wants to try it, I recommend it. So I suppose this slide I put up first because I think this is, I suppose, one of the big things about working from home for a lot of us that are used to working in offices. Now, I'm freelance myself, so I work in the Dingle Hub usually, and the reason I do that is to have that get out of bed, get showered, dressed, change into work mode, go to the office feeling like our lady in the picture here. And that's, I think, for a lot of people, what they're really struggling with at home is that mindset change from when you go getting up in the morning to an office or to somewhere to work, and now you're just kind of getting up and going, oh sure, I might just sit in bed with my laptop, or I might sit at the kitchen table. And you kind of, some people struggle with that mindset change. Now I'm work as a freelance journalist as well, so I'm well used to actually just opening my laptop anywhere and just getting down to it. But if you struggle with kind of getting into the work frame of mind, I think it can be really helpful for people to actually do something or go somewhere that is different. And I've seen some funny things pop up on social media lately, like people standing in their shower, holding onto the shower rail, pretending they're on the tube, going to work kind of stuff. But you can kind of mentally get yourself into it. So we'll talk a little bit about that as well as we go. So I've kind of split this into three sections. One is kind of setting up your home office area. The second one is kind of just productivity and being productive. And then the third one is kind of taking a bit from what I would kind of do at the Speak Up Club kind of thing and bringing in that public speaking element, bringing it into online meetings, Zoom calls, things like that. So Deanna, hopefully that will help you a little bit as well with what you were talking about with trying to run your writer's workshop online. So, and I'll talk a good bit about some kind of techie stuff as well that hopefully you might find helpful. And some of you might know these things already, but I'll do a quick run through so I won't bore anyone who's already using these tech apps and things like that. So into the home office first. And I think this is a big thing for people who aren't used to working from home, is that you might not have an area that is a workspace. And especially people with kids at home, that even people who do normally work from home but don't normally have kids at home, having them at home can be a big change, or having other people in the house that might not normally be there during your working hours. So, I mean, for me, I have a dog at home who I have got babysat for this hour so I can do the webinar, because I know it would be torture trying to do it with him, trying to sit in my lap and lick my face while I was trying to talk. So it is that thing of making this space for yourself that you can actually work without interruption. And you know, everyone saw like Ciara Kelly off News Talk when she got COVID. She had to do her show from her hot press, and Claire Byrne was doing the news program at night out of her garden shed. So people are trying to find these weird little spaces, and for some people, I mean, they're wandering around the house, their laptop, they're sitting on the stairs one minute, they're at the kitchen table the next. So if you have the luxury of space, and not everyone does, it is really good to set up a dedicated area. And I think one thing that is, if there's other people in the house, and I live on my own, so it's just like I have everything everywhere. I've got a clean tunnel behind the screen here where you can't see the mess, but around my laptop is just like debris everywhere. And my office is on my dining table. But I would say to most people, don't put it on your dining table, because when you want to have dinner, you have to move everything. And if you've got a load of files or your laptop and books and notes and bits and bobs that you've been using to work with, then you have to just like pick everything up and move it somewhere else while you have your dinner. And just, you know, stuff gets lost and you get kind of lose track of what you're working on. So don't do what I do, do what I say would be my advice usually. But I would say if you have a room that has a door that's closed, or you kind of soundproof it from the rest of the house, that's a really good thing as well, just in terms of a lot of stuff like this that's happening now, Zoom and online meetings, so that you have that quiet space, so that there's not people shouting or dogs barking or the washing machine going in the background. It's another reason not to use your table in the kitchen. And also plug points. It seems really obvious, but just actually having somewhere you can plug in your phone and your computer, and if you have a printer or whatever else. So you do need plug points beside your desk. And just in terms of if you're getting a desk for the first time and you don't have a lot of space, the picture I have here is actually one that's a glass desk, and that's a really good thing to do if you don't want it kind of taking over a room that is maybe a spare room or a bedroom that you're using for other things. A glass desk can be good. It just doesn't kind of overwhelm the room with deskiness, you know. It's not a big ugly office desk, and you can get some quite neat little nifty ones in places that are like that one in the picture is a Habitat one, and they deliver to Ireland, so probably IKEA do similar. And you know, just something small and kind of not overwhelming, so it's not taking over your house, because you mightn't, you know, have that much space as well. Natural light is great, and we'll get on to why it's so important again later when we're talking about Zoom calls and online meetings, but it's good for your mood as well. So, you know, you're not sitting in a hot press or a darkened room or a dark corner, that you're not kind of, daylight's important, and breaks are important too, and we'll talk more about that later. But if you can have some natural light where you're working, it is ideal, just for mental health and also for conference calls when you need a bit of light to be seen. So ergonomics is one thing I think is very important to look at, no matter where you are, whether you're at home or in your office. And this is why I suppose a lot of people, you know, would sitting at a desk rather than sitting on your couch, rather than sitting in bed with your laptop, which I like, if I'm writing, kind of like doing that. But if you're staring at a screen all day, it's very important to be sitting upright. So screen height is a big thing. So I have my screen currently on a table with 2 big books and a cardboard box that a package came in under it, so that it is, I'm going to point at my camera now there, and it's as close to eye level as I can get it. So if you can get your screen up at that height, it's very important for your neck. And also if you can get a keyboard that, you know, your laptop keyboard. If I was trying to type now, my hands need to be up high. So I have a little other keyboard that I use. It's a Bluetooth one, which is great. And I would say with this as well, if you can, I know I usually use a separate screen that I hook up my laptop to, which is in the hub at the moment, so I don't have it. So hence the pile of books under my laptop. When I bought the screen, and it was very reasonably priced screen, and just a cable to hook it up to my laptop, it's brilliant. So then, and I still put that screen up in a pile of books in the hub, because it still isn't high enough. You need to make sure it's eye level. But I ended up buying quite a cheap keyboard with it, and immediately got rid of it and got the expensive Apple one that I was trying to avoid buying, because the cheap keyboard had like big keys that you had to pound on, and they made a clacky noise, and it was more effort to press them than these little ones on this. So get yourself a good keyboard and a good mouse. You won't regret actually spending the money on those because you use them so much. Then the other thing is, yeah, so the height thing, or the height of it thing, like you don't want to be hunched over looking down at it, because that's just so bad for your neck, so bad for your shoulders. So you want to be in an upright position with your head looking straight up. And I have a slide later that'll show you kind of the ideal distance as well. Basically, you want it kind of arm's length away from your head is a good kind of gauge. And try and resist doing the forward head position, because that is really bad for your neck as well. So your chair should be like obviously comfortable, and I'm gonna just click on now. So we have this slide here to show you, ideally you would have your feet flat on the floor. If you can't, you might want to put your feet on something. You want your spine supported. You want your hips a little bit above your knees. And also you see there the kind of distance between the side of the chair and the knee. You do want a little bit of space. So you might want to even sit forward and put a cushion behind your back so that your feet are flat on the floor and there's a little bit of space before the back of your knee there. And then, you know, the height of your chairs is adjustable. And the reason for that is you want to get it at a height that your hands or your elbows are at right angles there. So when you type, your hands shouldn't be up or they shouldn't be down. They should be just comfortably elbows by your sides, and then this bit of your arm like parallel to the ground. And that's kind of your ideal sitting position for comfort. So you might need to use cushions, use things to try and get, because obviously your home chairs aren't going to be like office chairs, they're not as adjustable. But if you need to use a cushion behind your back, if you need to put, I don't know, like a pile of books on the floor or a big folder or something that raises your feet up, just play around with that and try and get yourself into a really good sitting position and check those angles, the straight spine, the head, not in the forward position, the arms especially. And chairs that have armrests are actually meant to be quite bad, because the way you put your hands on them can actually put them in the wrong position, and that hunch your shoulders a little bit unnaturally. So try and get a chair with no armrests and get yourself into that comfortable typing position. And then a few other things I think can be important is to actually just make your space nice. Now this picture doesn't illustrate any of these, but it does illustrate a good home office setup kind of near a window. And it's actually from a company that do attic conversions to make them into offices. So they've kind of shown some of their desk kind of building that they do. And that's a great kind of setup there, because you've got lots of space in your window. You've got all the things you need. So, you know, if you're making yourself a little office space, apart from all the practical stuff like your files and your folders and all the things you need, it is nice to have a little plant or an essential oil burner in there. And I tend to use something like lemon oil, anything citrusy or peppermint, but lemon is quite good for focus and concentration. So if you have an essential oil burner or a nice scented candle, that, you know, scent is quite a kind of evocative thing as well. So it'll remind you of something. And maybe lemon is so good for focus that it'll remind you that you're in work mode. So maybe you'll associate that with your kind of, I'm in work now, the lemon oil is there and it's helping me get clarity and focus. So little things like that can help you get into that work mode as well if you're struggling with the kind of the work thing. A lot of people say, you know, the routine thing is very important, and I'm very bad at routine. So, and I work freelance. So for me, not so much, but it definitely is. And I was kind of like, this whole thing about getting dressed in the morning, I mean, I don't know, but it kind of has, I've decided why, and this is why I think it is important. If you're at home, it's very tempting to like throw a wash on, just do a little bit of something. Sorry, I just need to blow my nose. Yeah, it's so tempting to kind of do little bits and bobs around the house, and you can't do little bits and bobs around the house if you're wearing a parasuit and high heels. So if you're the kind of person that's like, oh, I might just mop the floor and then I'll reply to that email afterwards, I would say definitely put on a pair of high heels or something you cannot put out the bins in. And that will be a good idea then, because you can't distract yourself by doing all the little stuff around the house that you know needs doing. And when you're in the house, you see it and you want to do it. It's like, no, you're at work now, you can't do that stuff. So I'd say that is the good argument for getting dressed for work. And obviously if you have to do conference calls and things, you have to get dressed as well. So that leads us nicely onto productivity. So we've kind of talked a bit about that routine thing. So routine is good for us. I mean, it does get us into good habits, and you just have to kind of think though, if you're in a kind of a 9-to-5 job normally, you don't necessarily need, and hopefully your bosses, if you have bosses, don't expect you to do that at home, because I think everyone's aware that this is a very different time we're going through, and all the rules, the normal rules, are kind of out the window. But also, like, you can be more productive at home, so you don't necessarily need to do the same hours, because when you're in an office, there's a lot of time that is spent chatting about doing things, or in meetings, and you know, those meetings that could email, like staffing done, time you're spending working. Just, you know, if you do sit down to work, have that kind of thing of SMART goals. You know, you don't have to sit there 9 to 5 and 2 to 3 or half 3 and get what you want or need to get done. And if you kind of sit down every day and decide what you need to get done. So SMART goals are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time framed. And I think for me, one of the biggest things at home is time framing, because there's no, you know, closing bell kind of thing. And if I kind of get into doing something, I could be there doing it in the evening and not even have realized that kind of go home from work time has arrived. So if you want to do kind of a little priority list every morning is a really good idea, and decide what you need to do or what you want to do that day. Write it down, or do yourself an online little checklist if you prefer doing it on your computer, and then kind of put, you know, prioritize. Then you go, what's, like, if I only had 1 hour to work, what's the most important thing to do? Then make sure that is your number 1 priority. Number things even, and then where can you do them? Achievable. You'll kind of day by day, when you're not getting things done, you'll see how much is achievable and what is normal in this situation that we're in right now. And it might be very different to what it is in work. So I think the only way you can kind of figure it out is by doing it every day and seeing how it goes. And then, like, set the bar low to start with, because then you can feel like you've achieved something. And then you can raise the bar the next day and, well, oh yeah, I got 2 things done yesterday. Maybe I'll go for 3 things today. So start low, like, you know, be able to give yourself a pat on the back the first few days. And then as you get kind of into your groove a bit more, give yourself a few more things to do, or more kind of difficult things to do maybe, but don't beat yourself up at the start working from home. Like, just keep the goals low and achievable day 1, and then move them a little bit higher as you go. But time framing them is really important, because you could end up just forgetting what time it is. And the evenings are stretching longer now as well. So all of a sudden it could be 8:30 and you only think it's 5:30 or 6. So give yourself an hour to do something. Give yourself 2 hours to do it. Look, it's really hard to plan how long things will take to do sometimes, but just kind of put the time frame on it and then be flexible afterwards. But once you kind of say, I want to do this and I want to do it in an hour and a half, and then I'm going to have my lunch or whatever, it actually just gives you that bit of structure to do it in. And you can always change the structure the next day if it wasn't enough time or if it didn't work out. So that's kind of routine, productivity, presenteeism. Taking breaks is a big thing. And I'm going to get onto in the kind of tech section a few little things that can help with that. But again, when you're in the office or in an office environment, there's so much change built into every day and you don't even notice it, but you will probably go for coffee at 11 o'clock. You'll get up and have a chat with someone. You'll go out for lunch. You'll have a meeting. So you're up and down from your desk a bit and you're moving around, or you're talking to other people, and breaks just kind of happen naturally sometimes. But when you're sitting at home on your own, you could literally sit there hunched over typing, and all of a sudden 3 hours have gone by and you haven't even noticed if you were kind of in the zone of what you're doing. So there are some kind of little apps and things that can actually do little timers and kind of give you a reminder to take a break. So I'll look at some of those in the tech section then when we get onto that. Distractions we've already talked about. So other people in the house, obviously, dogs, anything like that, phone calls. So it might be something that you need to put your phone onto flight mode while you're working. Decide, I'm going to do 2 hours a day where I'm working. I'm going to tell everyone else in the house that I'm at work, and they're just to leave me alone for those 2 hours unless there's a major emergency. And try and just carve out that time. And it's about setting boundaries with other people. So be that online boundaries where you turn your phone off, you turn your instant messenger off, or you just tell everyone in the house, like, look, I'm at work now, this is my time and I have to do this, so give me 2 hours and we'll talk about whatever else needs to be done then. So workflow, there's a good few things that can help with workflow, and I'll get to them as well. So just to say, little things like that time framing, making a timetable, doing your to-do lists, they can really help, because you can, you know, just something you can tick off to show I've done this, I've achieved this. And like, even if you just give yourself 3 tasks every day that you're like, right, I want these 3 things done, being able to tick them off makes you feel like that sense of achievement. Whereas if you're kind of free flowy working, say, and switch tasking between different things, it can be very meandery and you don't necessarily feel like you've achieved something. So it's good to give yourself that sense of achievement, and don't switch tasks as well. If you're setting those little time frame goals, do that thing and only do that thing for that half hour, whatever it is, and then have a check my email half an hour afterwards, but don't switch between them, because switch tasking has been shown to be like the killer of productivity in general. And I used to be like the worst person in the world for having about 20 different email tabs open, snapping between different jobs I was doing, talking to someone come in and ask me to do something, and I would drop everything and do that for them and then get back to the other thing. It's the worst. Get a to-do list. If someone asks you to do something, write it on the bottom of the to-do list. At some point, you might want to reshuffle your to-do list and prioritize it with a number higher up the to-do list, but until you have worked through your priorities, new things are on the bottom. So just making that kind of structure around your work can really help, and then help you feel like you've achieved something and tick things off as well. So if you're working with any remote teams, and I don't really know if any of you are, but just if you are, communication obviously at the moment is huge, and that's something that can be tricky online. I mean, I don't know if anyone's ever in their personal life had like an argument over WhatsApp with a partner or something like that, but obviously text communication can be the worst, and the tone of things can go awry, and it's always better to talk. So I would say if you're working with a remote team, communication is so important at the moment. If you have kind of ongoing projects that you're doing, a daily meeting or a weekly meeting, if they're kind of a looser time frame stuff, is really important. Just to check in with people and try and do it over Zoom, because like personal kind of contact is good. You know, tone can go awry in emails, things just is better to be having positive communication at the moment. And I think face-to-face, in as much as it can be, is better than just written. And also when you're having that communication, even if you're dealing with, I suppose that like a lot of businesses are having a lot of stress at the moment, but I would kind of focus on positive and energizing communication, because everyone has, at least if nothing else in their life is going wrong, I suppose there's a general kind of underlying sense of anxiety and impending doom at the moment. So it is really important to be a bit more human and a bit more compassionate in your work communications at the moment. And you know, everyone's gone from, how can you do this thing, to, hi, I hope you and your family are well, in a work email. And that's important to keep, you know, a little sense of humanity around everything we're doing at the moment. So I would say, as much as you can, try and get your teams on Zoom, try and have a daily meeting if there's a team that needs a daily meeting, and try and kind of just check in on a human level as well during that. And, you know, any kind of given out you might need to do work-wise, try and minimize it at the moment and keep things really positive. And an atmosphere of trust is really important, because everyone's at home and it's harder to do work to the same level maybe as it would be in the office, and things might take a bit more time, and that can be just a mindset that we're all feeling maybe a little bit paralyzed at the moment as well. So kind of just trust your team and realize that everyone's kind of doing the best they can in really unusual circumstances. So try and keep that communication flow going with the team is really important, and just to be compassionate, I think, in every kind of interaction with your work colleagues is really important right now. So some of that tech that you can use to kind of keep things moving and communicate. We'll start with this. So has anyone used Slack before? No. Slack is one of the kind of first things that I found when it launched. I used it from the start, and I don't really work in a situation where I use it now because I'm not working with the team and such, but it is brilliant. It's really user friendly. It's a great, sorry, I think I might have some messages coming in there, something popping up that I can't, I might have to escape out of this actually too. Sorry, I'm just gonna look in the chat and see. Oh, just, yeah, Sheila, Noreen has very impressed by your background, and we'll try and get onto that actually in a minute. So I'll go back to screen share. Where am I? Can you still see my slides, everybody? Yeah. Okay. So next slideshow. Okay, Slack is really useful for team communication. So if you are working with a team, it is basically like an instant messenger, but a way fancier instant messenger that you can use within a team. And you can create little kind of channels on it, which have hashtags, basically. So you can have direct conversations one-on-one. You can bring people into a group and all have conversations together, or you can put a channel on it for a particular project, which is like everything about that project, people go into that channel and do. And the best thing about it is the integrations. So you can integrate it with loads of other apps, and you can have calendars and things going from it. You can do video calls, you can upload documents, you can download documents, and you can, work streams is one of the integrations you can do with it, which is like a online workflow kind of thing. And I'm going to go on to a few other of those now and the next slide. So these can use with a team. Work streams, Asana, Trello, Kanbanize are all based on the Kanban system. And Kanban was invented in, like, I'm going to say the 80s, I think, in a Toyota factory in Japan. And it's basically a workflow management system where they used cards to kind of go, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. And these were physical cards they used in a factory, but these are all kind of online digital versions of the Kanban system. So you can see there on the, both of the top thing I have there is a screenshot of Trello, and the bottom one is a screenshot of Kanbanize, I think. So basically, you can use this on your own, even if you're working on your own, just to keep track of what you're doing and what's going on, and where you're at with certain projects. So you can have like a to-do list, in progress list, done but need to send an invoice for it list. And then you can also have a team on it. You can assign names to things. So, Aoife has to do this task and Maggie has to do this task, and you can put a deadline on it. And so everyone can see where you're at in a project, who's responsible for it, when it's due. You can attach things like documents and things, or write notes in. So you can say, oh, there's this update on this project, this has happened. So there's lots of different ones that are all very similar. And there's lots of free versions of them as well. So I actually use Trello, usually myself, just for my own work, to keep track of what I'm doing, when it's due, who it needs to go to, put notes in about who I need to call, all this stuff. And then, like, once the project is finished, I don't, like, the Trello board is on top there, so you can see, you can have as many columns going across as you want. So I might have, commissioned work, in progress, stuff that I've filed copy for that I still have to invoice, and it does not come off that board until I've sent the invoice, so I know that it's done, it's finished, and it's completed and invoiced. So it's a great reminder tool, and it's really good in Teams as well. So especially for remote teams, because I used Kanban with the company that I was working with, and everyone else was in Dublin, and they would assign me work on Kanban, and I would do it, and they would know that I was doing it. They could see where I was with it. They'd know that I'd got the message that I was working on it, because I'd be typing in, like, say, oh, I've called this person, or I've done that interview and I'm writing it up now, and everybody knows what's going on. So it's really handy if you've got a team that's, you know, across the world, even working on one project, or if you were hiring a graphic designer to do something and you wanted to know, you know, if you were building a website, how it's going, have they done different parts of it, so you can keep track of what they're doing and any information they need from you. Say you have a business and you're trying to give them the copy for the website, you can put it all up on that, and then you can see which pages they've designed. They'll be moving the cards across. You can like pull cards onto different lists. So it's really handy for that sort of thing as well. Now, Clockify is a great one for anyone who kind of bills by the hour, I suppose, or even if you just want to see how long you're actually spending on work. You can put in like a different job, you can put in a different client. So you could have a client and you could have all the different projects you're working on for them. And it's like, I first started using it because I got quite a big job with a fee for the job, and I was like, I wonder how long this is going to take me, and actually what I will end up making per hour at the end of it, and will it be a good fee or a bad fee based on that. And so it's very useful for time tracking. But if you're working from home and you want to kind of time frame how much time you're giving projects, then you can see, you know, how much time stuff is taking you, and just out of interest to see, am I spending maybe too much time on something? Do I need to be a bit more mean with my time on certain things that are kind of time suckers, but maybe not that useful at the end? It's good for that, but it's great for just keeping track of different clients and things as well. And specifically now, while you're working from home, it has an interaction with this thing called a Pomodoro timer. Has anyone heard of Pomodoro? So Pomodoro is a system for taking breaks, basically. And I think that is super important right now, because you, according to the Pomodoro system, I think I might have put some, yeah, the Pomodoro method here is basically that you should work for 25 minutes, really focused, and then take a 5-minute break. And you should maximum do, I think, 4 cycles of this before you take a longer break. So there are various different things that you can use online to do the Pomodoro method. And I'd really advise it at the moment if you're working from home, because we don't have those built-in breaks in our day where you're getting up out of your chair and going for coffee or talking to someone in the office. Especially if you're working on your own at home, that it just makes you get up every 25 minutes. And for your back and your body and your posture and general like stiffness of sitting at a desk all day, it's a good reminder, because I find like an hour or two can fly by and I'll be slumped over my computer. So Pomodoro and Tomate's timer app, and Pomodoro is Italian for tomato. I don't know why it's called the tomato method, but it is, are good. And if you don't want to download the app, that link there, tomato-timer.com, is just, you can go onto the website and it will automatically start a timer for 25 minutes. And then after your 25 minutes, you take your break for 5. So I would say this is a great thing to do at the moment, just to get you up every half hour for, you know, for that 5 minutes, just walk around the house in a loop, or make a cup of tea, or whatever it is, put on a song, dance around to get a bit of movement going. But do try and take those breaks and use those timers to remind you, or like you could set a timer on your phone either. But I think the online tomato timer is the simplest to start using, and really good idea right now. So now it's my favorite part of this. It's the kind of the Speak Up Clubs part of the presentation, is the online meeting thing. So camera setup. If you've already got your computer the way it should be for your posture, the camera setup should be done pretty much. So you've got your camera at your eye level. It's level with your head. So camera at eye level is good for just being able to look straight into it. Level with your head is good for your posture. And then facing the light is good for people watching you because they're going to get a clearer view of you. So where I have mine right now, I have my front window of my house is there in front of me, and a kind of plain enough wall behind me and a bit of background there, but just so that there's nothing too distracting, you can't see anywhere, super messy, and the light is coming in, hitting my face so that you can see me. So I think the next slide, yeah. So this slide is an example of a split screen, and it comes from a video that somebody made. And in the video, she just held her phone with her back to the window in the first bit on the left, where you see she's completely in silhouette, she's totally dark. And then she just turned around. And the second side of that is where she's facing the window. So you can see the huge difference it makes sitting facing a window if you're on a Zoom call or something like that, that you're much more visible. And I mean, like when you're attending a webinar or something like this, it doesn't really matter because you're just listening to me rather than on. But if you're in a meeting for work and you want to get a point across, so you have to communicate with your colleagues, it's just a lot better if they can properly see your face. And, it's clear, they can see your expressions, they can kind of, the real communication is there much more so than if you're kind of in darkness. And as well, they're not, you've got your screen level with your face, so they're not looking up your nose, or kind of, those kind of things can be kind of non-verbal cues when you're communicating as well. So if you've got your head up and looking down at people, they might think you're being a bit arrogant. So if your camera is below you, that can come across as you've got your nose in the air. And as well, kind of in communication, if you have your head down a bit and your camera's up too high, which is unlikely, most people don't unless they actually have a camera kind of placed on top of their computer, but it can come across as kind of submissive or kind of not really confident. So you're better off being really level with your head so that you come across as level-headed and upright. Now that in itself, and this is something I say when I'm kind of teaching all the posture stuff in the Speak Up Club, is that being comfortable physically doesn't necessarily equate with looking comfortable. So what I try and do in public speaking kind of coaching is to get people to look very comfortable. But I mean, this is more comfortable for me actually sitting this way, because I'm just like slouched back and I'm kind of asymmetrical and my head's a bit to the side. But I wouldn't be giving a webinar sitting like that. I'd be sitting up straight and my head up, which like isn't a comfort position, but I look more comfortable speaking publicly doing that. So just, it's kind of a reminder not to slouch on a Zoom call or a meeting. Sit up straight and have good posture and you'll come across as more confident. So, and this applies to actual real life meetings as well, to sit powerfully with your spine strong. And if you're in a chair that is kind of swallowing you up, then sit on the edge of the chair, try and get your feet flat on the floor. And actually as well, if you're in a meeting at work and on Zoom as well, just a little bit back from the table gives you space to move your hands around. And you can see there on that slide as well, it has another good kind of picture of the kind of setup just for ergonomically, and this is for comfort and sitting in front of your desk. So I'll give that slides to Maggie to send around to you after this, so you can refer back to that and see for your home desk setup that you've got the most ergonomic and comfortable setup. Yeah, so this is, I'm still struggling with this, right? But look into the camera instead of people's faces. So I have you all on a panel on my screen there, and I am kind of periodically checking to see if people look really bored or if they're nodding their heads and going, oh yeah, this is useful. And it's really hard not to look at yourself. This is like, I'm like, oh my God, is my hair okay? But actually my laptop camera has a little green dot, and I'm trying to look at that because normally we try and look into each other's faces when we're talking to each other. But if I look at your faces now, like I'm looking at Susie's face there, like I'm trying to gaze into her eyes, but I probably look like I'm looking off somewhere to the side when I do that. So if I look at my camera like this, to you guys, I can't see it now, but I presume that that looks like I'm speaking more directly at you. And it feels really unnatural staring at a green dot and talking to the green dot. but you have to remember that this isn't a normal situation. So you do have to adapt your communication to the method of communication. So I'm trying to talk to the green dot rather than looking at your faces. And it does feel weird, but you just have to try and practice it and get used to it, because it is the way. The other thing is, if you're on an online meeting and it's your turn to talk, then I know that when I am talking, I want to have my head level and come across as level-headed and not, you know, not really confident or whatever. But this position, I often find myself lapsing into this position when I'm listening, and it is a listening position, but it's also in the animal world with, say, dogs, if they're having a fight, they will bare their neck and it's a sign of submission. So it kind of is, it's a position that gives your power away as such in that kind of sense. So if you start speaking with your head to the side, and think about, like, a classic one is, have you ever been in an art gallery looking, or that kind of idea of someone looking at a piece of art and they look at it like this? And it's a kind of I'm looking at a Picasso painting, trying to figure out what the hell is going on in that painting, or it's a piece of modern art I don't really understand. It's that kind of, I'm trying to figure out what's going on position of your head. So when you're getting your turn to speak in an online meeting, you don't want to still be in listening pose. If you've been listening to everyone else speaking, you need to put your head up right before you start speaking, because you want to sound like you know what you're talking about, not like you're still trying to figure out what's going on. So just a little reminder, if you are lapsing into listening pose on online meetings, get the head up right when it's your turn to talk. Then some calls might not be video calls. So just a little thing on conference calls, which I think, I'm glad that Zoom is getting more popular, because it does just bring a little more to it. And I think conference calls are quite hard when there's no video, because it's so impersonal. You don't really know who you're speaking to. You can't get any visual clues. And you know, even just from going like this on a Zoom call, people will know that that you have something to say, and you know, you can get that visual clue if people want to speak or say something. So they are better than that. So first thing is that if you're on a conference call, if you can, obviously it's not suitable to do on Zoom, but I would say stand up if you're just on the phone, because once you're standing, you can breathe better, you can use your diaphragm better, you can project your voice better, so your voice comes out stronger. You've also got a better energy. Like, a lot of radio presenters will stand up doing their show because there's just a better energy, and it does come out in your voice when you are more energized. Don't do this with your phone like that, because if you cradle your phone, you're constricting your throat there. So again, your voice won't come out as well. And I mean, my voice is fried now after talking for an hour nonstop, but it does, you'll actually, your throat will be sore from constricting your throat in any way. Again, I'd say avoid speakerphone, because again, like, this background noises like washing machines, dogs, kids, whatever, can kind of, it's not fair on the people you're on the conference call with. So try not to just hold your phone. It's better for the other people on the call. Then if you are on a conference call, try and identify, or try and appoint a chairperson for it, because you, just to kind of keep things moving, you know, some people will try and kind of take over the call. Sorry, I just need to actually move out of that for a second so I can get my screen visible to me, because I can't see it even though you can. So yeah, appointing a chair is good just to get things moving, because some people will kind of take over sometimes. And if you have like a 1 hour limit on your phone call, getting that kind of flow going can be difficult unless someone's actually moving things along. Another thing, if you are not on Zoom and you're just on a phone call, is to identify yourself before you speak. So every time you're chiming in with something, especially if it's kind of an international team that maybe don't all work together, you wouldn't necessarily know their voices, is to always be like, hello, this is Deanna from Speak Up Club. I'm just chiming in on that point. And then mute yourself when you're finished so that people can't hear what's going on in the background. And don't multitask, because if you're not muted, people can probably hear the click, clack, clack of your typing or you might get asked a question and you literally won't have a clue what was going on. And then if you do want to ask a question, don't be afraid to, and this goes for Zoom calls too, a polite interruption, just kind of, do you mind if I cut in there? I just want to add to that point, because it's very hard, especially on conference calls where there is no visible cue. It's much harder to butt in. So I would say, just don't be afraid to butt in, but do it politely and just be like, do you mind if I interrupt you for a second there? Can I just add to that point before we move on? And don't be afraid to make your voice heard on those. So that is the last slide. So we do have time for some discussion stuff now. If anybody wants anything clarified or to talk more about anything, they're all my contact details. But I'm just going to check in the chat slide there. It is good if you are stuck doing stuff in a bedroom. I would personally feel weird about having my bedroom on show, and especially in a work call. So it's a really good idea to put up a background if you are kind of stuck doing things in your bedroom, because I feel like it's not professional, and it's a bit too personal. It's like a bit of an intrusion on in your space. And also, like, especially if it's a spare room where you likely have all the laundry thrown on the bed or something like that, you do want to hide that. So it's different on a conference call because people can't see you put up your hand. The etiquette, I think, generally, and people are only getting used to the etiquette now because people are using it more. The etiquette would be to mute yourself, definitely. And then also, if you're on Zoom, a really handy trick is if you're on mute, you can just use your space bar to talk. So it's almost like you're on a tannoy system, just hit your space bar and talk. And then you can just, like, once you take your finger off the space bar, you're muted again automatically. So that's quite a good way to do Zoom, and a handy little keyboard shortcut. And I think there are some other keyboard shortcuts you can use as well, but that's kind of the most essential one. Yeah, so in Zoom, there's actually a thing that you can raise hand. You can actually see that. Now, the only problem is that, say, for instance, the view that I have of you, especially when I have my slides up, I can't see everyone necessarily all the time. I might only see like 3 or 4 people on the side, depending on my view. And once I click into my slides, I can't use my mouse on screen. So I have to get out of my slides to go and like look at, that view. So I would say the chat or the hands up button, though, that if someone can see you say that, or see you kind of that way. But just to be on the safe side, then, like, if there's a gallery view and everyone's on a meeting, you can just put up your hand or something. Then yeah, either of those, I would say. But you do see whoever's speaking, there's a little yellow box goes around them. So even if you start making noise, you're visible. And I suppose it does depend on the situation, how formal it is. Then, it might be different with a kind of a less formal meeting or a more formal meeting, what you would choose to do. So yeah, is there any other things that I haven't covered? I know Sheila probably talked a bit about reactive work and chaotic work, and I think that's something probably didn't get into too much outside of the kind of creating a routine. But I would say, just because, I mean, especially now things are kind of so strange, I wouldn't beat yourself up about how you work. I just try and make your work as self-carey as possible, so that you're giving yourself the nicest space to do it in. You're trying to carve out a space where you've less distractions, that you have that time, that people aren't distracting you, and that you're using as many little technologies as you can that can help with it, to make it easier and to make communication with your people that you have to work with easier. But I wouldn't give out to yourself about it. Like, anything you get done at the moment is a win, and kind of pat yourself on the back for everything you do right now. And for some people, especially if your work doesn't demand it, you don't necessarily have to worry that you don't have a routine or it's not really rigid. Not everyone is a rigid person. I'd say probably a lot of people on this call are more creative people. I know some of you definitely are, and there are different work styles, so you don't have, it's not one size fits all, and it's trying different things to find the things that suit you and that you feel productive with, and that your goals are being achieved. And if you're happy with what you've achieved, no matter how you get there, then whatever method you've used to get there, obviously legal methods, but like, you know, whatever works and gets you to that endpoint. So I do think the goal setting is important, but give yourself a low bar at the moment, and then give yourself a lot of praise for everything you get done. Is there anything else or any other questions? I find, so I, in the past, have not been great at setting goals. I'm probably still not, but I think that once I write them down, and I literally, on a piece of paper or on a calendar with a box to tick, and like that box needs to get ticked. And if I'm using one of those online workflow things, that I put a due date on it, and I try and get it done for that due date. I know there is a method, and like it's just look at my notes on it there. So there is a method that you can use that is kind of a positive visualization kind of thing. So say your goals are leading you to a place that and maybe it's not more of a task goal, it's more of a success kind of goal. But if you want to be a more organized person, so you just every morning say to yourself a positive present tense of affirmation. So I am really organized. I got everything I wanted to do done today. I achieved this. I don't know what particular things you might have to say, but if you consistently tell yourself successful present tense positive statements about yourself, I'm organized, I'm successful, I've achieved my goals, and you can get more specific to things that are personal to you. So like it's a mantra, and say it to yourself every morning and say it to yourself every night. Or if you're using that Pomodoro method, maybe that's what you do with one of your 5 minutes. Like if you tell yourself these things enough, your brain will start to believe them. And these things can be really subtle, and they might sound a bit kind of airy-fairy at the start, but if you make a habit of consistently telling yourself positive things about yourself, you'll A, start to believe them, and B, start to do them. And give yourself 28 days, and don't even think about how successful the method is being for that 28 days. Just do it, and then check it at the end of it and tell me how successful and positive you are.
Brilliant. Yes, okay.
But I'd say the key is don't check it every day and don't go, was I really successful today? Don't even think about it. Just keep doing it for at least a month before you reflect on how well it's going, and you will be surprised how much of a difference it's made.
21 days to make a habit, isn't that it?
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant.
So make a habit and then reflect on how great it has worked. But if you constantly check in on it, it's so incremental and so small that you won't feel it's working. It'll take a while, and then all of a sudden you'll just be like, oh my God, that really worked. But it does work eventually. But it's just, yeah, small baby steps.
Brilliant, thanks.
Okay, anything else or anyone else? Oh, well, listen, I'm going to make a PDF of the slides and I will send it to Maggie and she can send it around. And if anyone has any questions, my contact details are on it, so you will have them. And best of luck, everyone. Lovely chatting to you today. And I'll hopefully see you soon in real life when we get out again.